Hey there, I'm Justin Sinceri. I am a therapist and a coach who wants to help you live with more calm, confidence, and connection without psychobabble or woo-woo. In this episode, I want to help you practice validation. A lot of my clients and my community members in the Stuck Not Collective, they struggle with validation. Validation is basically recognizing what is true, acknowledging how you feel or what you're thinking or what sensations you have inside. Validation is just acknowledging what is true, and that's difficult. That's difficult for people to do, to recognize what's happening within them and be honest with themselves. Instead, we default to minimizing or excusing or denial and other sort of cognitive skills that we have. So I want to help you practice validating. We're not going to make it personal. We're actually going to make it more objective. And I'm going to share a story with you that was written by ChatGPT, my helper. And we are going to try to validate some of the experiences that Maria is having in the story. So what I want you to do is to get out something to write on, and you're going to write down 5 different domains. Those domains are polyvagal state, sensations, impulses, emotions, and cognitions. So those 5 domains, just write those down on a piece of paper. When you listen to the story, I want you to pause whenever you need to, write down what you're hearing in those domains. And then at the end of this, I'll share what I see, a couple of them. I won't do all of them. That way, I'd love to hear from you, especially if you're on YouTube in the comments. Put a comment with what you're seeing or hearing that I didn't mention. If you really struggle with this kind of thing, I have something called SSIEC. It's a worksheet that has all these domains with a whole bunch of words on them to help you get going. And if you sign up for my email list, I'll send you a download for the SSIEC sheet. Just follow the link in the description or go to justinlmft.com/SSIEC. That sheet has all these domains. It has the polyvagal state, that's the first S, sensations, impulses, emotions, and cognitions. All those are laid out on a table to help you. It's like it acts as a cross-reference. If you know your emotion, then you can use this table as a way to identify what sensations might be connected to that emotion, as well as what cognitions and polyvagal state and impulses as well. So impulses are basically what the body wants to do or has a natural reflex to do. Like when we're in the flight state, the impulse might be to run away. When we're in the fight state, there could be an impulse to push or strangle or pull or lift. Sensations are the experience, the bodily experience of an emotion. So if you have an emotion of sadness, these sensations might be things like heaviness or emptiness. Those are sensations. Cognitions are the things in our brain, and not just words, but also images and memories and calculations, all the stuff that our brain does. The last one is emotions. Emotions are, well, sad and happy and relaxed and scared, just those emotions. All right, so let's get to the story. Maria had just finished a long day of work and was finally sitting down to relax. She scrolled through her phone, noticing that a few of her friends had made plans without her. A wave of discomfort washed over her. Her chest tightened, her stomach churned, and a thought flashed. They must not like me as much anymore. Her heart started to race, and she could feel a heaviness in her limbs. She stared at her phone, tempted to message one of them, to ask why she hadn't been invited. But she hesitated, unsure if it could make things worse. A part of her wanted to pull away entirely, to shut off her phone and retreat into her room. Another part of her felt the urge to react, to demand an explanation. She let out a long breath, unsure of what to do next, feeling the loneliness and rejection settling deeper. Okay, so that's the story. Now let's fill in now hopefully you already paused and hopefully you already filled in some of these, but let's talk about what the domains were that appeared in the story or the examples of the domains. Let's start with emotions. What emotions did you identify? And again, if you're on YouTube, put your list of emotions that you identified in the comments. What I heard was sadness, rejection, and maybe anxiety. Her heart starting to race. That could be some anxiety. It also could be fear. And what you'll notice is that none of this is really super hard and concrete. Like it's open for debate as to what emotions there were. Some of them are pretty clear, I think. Rejection, I think it's pretty darn clear. She wasn't invited, and so she felt rejected. Another one that doesn't flat out say, but she could have felt anger. One thing that she felt the impulse to do was to demand an explanation, which kind of sounds like she could have some anger. Let's shift next to thoughts. Thoughts and emotions kind of go together. For me, I tend to group those together as top level, maybe tertiary, third level of our experiences, and behaviors might be like a fourth level after that. But cognitions and emotions, I tend to group together. They seem to really reinforce each other, and we can get stuck in cognitions and or emotions. Our thoughts definitely feed into our emotions definitely feed into our thoughts. So I group those together. So that's why we're focusing on those first. And I think those are typically more accessible, at least consciously. So her thoughts, what thoughts can we validate? What thoughts can we acknowledge are real for her, are true? One of them was really obvious, which was, they must not like me as much anymore. The other one that maybe isn't so obvious, that she probably thought, and at least in words, it says that she wanted to ask why she hadn't been invited. So she had the cognition of asking a question, why wasn't I invited? That's a cognition as well. There's also a third one here, which is the thought of making things worse, which probably came from the emotion of fear, maybe anxiety. But making things worse, that's a cognition as well. I'm going to make things worse if I say something. If I speak up, it's going to upset my little group here and make things worse. So that was emotions and cognitions. I grouped those together. Underneath that grouping is another group, which is sensations and impulses. These two are consciously accessible, but it's not nearly as easy as cognitions and emotions. So if you are mindfully aware of what's happening within you, you can definitely notice the sensations and the impulses that come along with those sensations. I think that these two reinforce each other, the sensations and impulses. For example, if you have the sensation of heaviness, that heaviness is telling you to immobilize, that the impulse would be immobilization. But if you don't do it, then the impulse is never acted upon. If the impulse is never acted upon, well, this sensation stays there. And then we would never get to the bottom layer, which is the polyvagal state. If the impulse is to immobilize, the state is likely shut down. If you don't listen to the impulse to immobilize, then the shutdown never alleviates. Anyhow, let's focus on the sensations and impulses. So what sensations did you notice? I noticed the obvious ones are the chest tightening and stomach churning. These actually might come from different polyvagal states. I think that they do. And it might indicate that there's some polyvagal ladder climbing here happening for her in real time. Her chest tightened and then her stomach churned, which would, I'll touch upon that when I get to the polyvagal state, but those are some sensations that we're noticing. Another sensation is the heaviness in her limbs and her heart starting to race. So the next thing to focus on is, what impulses did she have? What impulse did she have that came along with those sensations? A couple of them are to speak up. She had the impulse to speak up and just ask questions. It didn't seem like a domineering, dysregulated speaking up. It felt more like, to me, like a powerful speaking up, like just using her voice and listening to what she needed in that moment, which was clarification from her friends. And within that actually was an impulse to connect, because she wanted to be a part of it. So that impulse to connect by using her voice, but also listening to the flight fight activation along with the impulse to connect. So those two things combined, and that results to what I call power or empowerment. And again, it's not a domineering thing. It's actually a connective flight fight kind of thing. There's one more obvious impulse, which was to turn her phone off and then retreat into her room. So leave. A little bit of flight activation perhaps, but she wanted to escape, to retreat into her room. A more subtle impulse that actually is in here is that she wanted to, or the hesitation. The hesitation is an impulse to immobilize. It's kind of like a little freeze impulse. It's to not be seen, not to make things worse, and to just sort of like pause or freeze for a moment until the danger passes. What other impulses did you see? Again, if you're on YouTube, put it in the comments. I'd love to read what you saw. So the last thing to go into is, what polyvagal state or states are you seeing active in this? And I think there's actually a bunch. She kind of seems to be all over the place on the polyvagal ladder. Let's start at the beginning. She just got off work, and I'm assuming that she has a stressful job. It says that she was finally sitting down and relaxed. The way I read that is, work is overwhelming, it's stressful, In my mind, I'm just making up a story here. In my mind, she's a nurse and works in the ER. And there are sounds going off. There's crises. There's bureaucracy. There's doctors that think they know everything. All of these things is just like overwhelming for her system. She comes home and finally I can sit down and relax. What she should do is actually relax and mindfully let herself decompress. Mindfully collapse on the couch and just breathe. That's what she should do. Instead, what she does is gets her phone out. So the polyvagal state probably is some level of freeze. Stress, overwhelm, to me, those come from freeze. So she probably has some level of freeze, comes home, and she needs to listen to that. She needs to immobilize and decompress. But instead, she kind of solidifies the freeze by getting her phone out. So can you decompress while watching TV and being on your phone? Yeah, kind of. But really, if you take it away and you just have the present moment, silence, especially if you work in a place like an ER, if you just give yourself silence when you get home and truly collapse, that's probably going to be a much better recovery versus getting your phone out or watching TV. So she got her phone out, which is not bad, but it's less than ideal. But what happened was that she was triggered further into overwhelm or stress or a little bit of freeze because she felt rejected by her friends. Now, did her friends intend that? We have no idea. Probably not. But regardless, it tapped into some feeling of rejection that she has within her. Her chest tightened and her stomach churned. To me, that could be evidence of sympathetic activation, which is chest tightening. Stomach churning could be evidence of shutdown, which follows the polyvagal ladder and sequentially. It makes sense. These things could also be kind of happening at the same time, and maybe there's some freeze activation going on, which would definitely, I think, feel in the stomach and in the chest as well as possible. Plus, there was the thought of rejection, which is very disconnected, very away from the group, so lacking safety. So in this small moment, she has some level of dysregulation, not intensely, but at least in this little micro moment, it's there. I would say it's more of a freeze personally with little access to safety, at least in this small moment. And then her heart starts to race and she feels a heaviness in her limbs. All this could be some level of freeze. At least to me, it's kind of pointing that direction. When we're in shutdown, heart starting to race, no, not so much. In freeze, yeah. In flight fight, yeah. But there's also the heaviness in her limbs, which to me suggests some level of shutdown. These two together, flight, fight plus shutdown, that's freeze. I think there's a little bit of freeze happening within her here. She's staring at her phone, so she's immobilized and she's just kind of staring at it. She's tempted, but she's also hesitating. Again, freeze, that indicates freeze to me. Thoughts of making things worse, that indicates shutdown or freeze, but to me this keeps pointing back to some freeze. A part of her wants to pull away entirely. That's flight activation, potentially. To shut off her phone and retreat in her room. Yeah, sounds like flight activation. But another part wants to react and demand an explanation, which would probably come more from fight, but not dysregulated fight, I don't think. Although it could be. At this point, it sounds like there's not much safety active, and retreating to her room and hiding, yeah, not much safety there. Demanding explanation, yeah, not much safety. So she's probably in flight fight here and less freeze, probably more flight fight, which is totally possible. Just because you access freeze in a moment doesn't mean you stay there. It might just be like a momentary access of freeze and then shutdown comes off and now you're left with just flight fight. What happens next is that she lets out a long breath, not knowing what to do next, so indecisive, feeling loneliness and rejection. All that suggests to me shutdown, not freeze, but shutdown. So it's possible that she came home already in freeze because of overwhelm and stress, did not give herself the decompression that she needed, and then the overwhelm and stress are reinforced, and now has less access to safety. But the freeze is not so intense that it's a full-on panic attack and that she's staying in freeze. The shutdown may have come off, and then she's left with flight fight. She can't run away from the problem, can't fight it off, and so she goes into shutdown at the end. So I could see that is the sequence of events, and these things are rapid. It's not like obvious all the time what state someone in for 30 minutes. It could be, but these also could be really rapid shifts. It's not always super obvious what state someone is in. Someone's state doesn't always last for like 30 minutes to an hour to all day. Yeah, it could. There could be a dominant state that flavors the system, like someone could be in shutdown more often than not, but that doesn't mean that they're in a chronic 10 out of 10 shutdown all day. At one point, it might be a 10, yeah. Another point, it might be a 2, and they have more access to safety or more access to flight fight. So for her, we're looking at what might be really rapid shifts in polyvagal state that could follow the sequence. It's also possible this is written by AI, and AI is confused and doesn't understand the sequence of autonomic ladder shifts. That's it. I hope this was helpful for you in validating and recognizing what's happening within somebody in their emotions, their cognitions, their sensations, their impulses, and even their polyvagal state. I know it's not always easy to do that for yourself. So if you can practice this by recognizing or by acknowledging these domains in a story, well, maybe it makes it easier for you to do that for yourself. And the tool that I can give you is the SSIEC sheet. It's something I created exactly for this purpose, which is to help you have the words to identify what's happening within you truthfully. So head on over to justinlmft.com/SSIEC and sign up for my email list, and you'll get the sheet. That's it for this episode. I hope this has been a helpful resource for you. Good luck in your own validation. Bye.
This podcast is not therapy, not intended to be therapy or be a replacement for therapy. Nothing in this creates or indicates a therapeutic relationship. Please consult with your therapist or seek for one in your area if you are experiencing mental health symptoms. Nothing in this podcast should be construed to be specific life advice. It is for educational and entertainment purposes only.